We welcome everyone to the panel discussion for today. And for those who don't know what is PSF, Progressive Students Forum, PSF is a student-initiated organization in TISS, Data Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. And we do conduct and engage in discussions, debates in contemporary issues happening around our country. And for knowing more about us, please do follow us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Okay, so we all know India is now facing through a very difficult and disturbing phase in every sector. And the news from Hadras was terribly shocking for all of us. Uh, and the 19-year-old Dalit girl was brutally raped and murdered. And the UP government's complexities in this case and in other similar incidents happening all over India uh, clearly shows utter impunity, lawlessness in the state, and the pathetic casteist mindset. So, as protests rage against caste atrocities and complex administration, we Progressive Students Forum strongly believes that it is important to raise our voices louder than ever and continue the resistance. So today, in solidarity with all the other national protests happening around, we Progressive Students Forum uh, invite to everyone to our panel discussion on resisting rape culture in a caste society. And today we have our panelists from well-known research scholars and advocates of Dalit women rights. So let me introduce to our panelists today. Dr. Meera Velayudan, the president of Indian Association for Women Studies. She has been involved in gender studies since the inception in India from the early 80s. Her doctoral research focused on gender, caste, social reform, nationalism, and popular movements in Kerala, and also worked on strategies of organization of women in varied contexts, historical and contemporary. Ma'am has been part of designing and conducting courses on gender studies and participated in national and international courses on related to gender. She also draws from her own social legacy, whose lives traversed several modernities, anti-caste, social reform, state people's movements, and national movements. She has a vast body of publications in English, Malayalam, and Urdu. And our next panelist is Dr. Sangeeta Thosar, working as assistant professor in Advanced Center of Women Studies in TISS, School of Development TISS. Ma'am has been working in the field of women studies from 2007 and teaching in women studies from 2009. And her research area is caste and gender, women's role in social movements and citizenships, and Dalit Adivasi women's questions. Wide publication in Marathi and English in the area of research. Currently, she is involved in research on reconstruction of caste patriarchy and women issues. Our next panelist is Swati Karthik, a research scholar at Pondicherry University. Swati Karthik is the student representative in our panel, who is an active observer in university spaces and other social platforms about the caste-based issues, a consistent commentator and activist against caste atrocities and gender issues, and who's always raising voices against raising voices for women rights. And we have Pooja Mandal, former Vice President of Progressive Students Forum, to chair our session today. And she is 2017-19 social work graduate from TISS Mumbai. And she is a vibrant young vocal voice in all the contemporary social issues and who is a very vibrant fighting against
Your voice is not there.
hello, ma'am.
Your voice has gone up.
Pooja, can you hear me?
Yes, Gopika.
Yes.
I'll go ahead.
Pooja.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you
yeah,
so
yes,
much.
yes, of course.
Thank you, Gopika. First of all, I'd like to say hello to everybody and good evening. And I would like to apologize that I cannot switch on my video for this session because I'm facing electricity issues and there's a blackout in my area. And I would like to thank PSF Mumbai, Progressive Students Forum Mumbai, for organizing this lecture, Resisting Rape Culture in a Caste Society, in solidarity with the nationwide protests against the brutal gang rape and murder of a Dalit woman by upper caste men in Hathras, UP. I'd like to give a brief about the case where a young Dalit woman was raped by upper caste men in Hathras, UP. And after her death, her body was cremated by UP police officials without the consent of her family. Growing up myself in UP, this did not seem far fetched to me, and I feel this should not come as a shock because this would not be the first time that heinous sexual crimes have taken place on Dalit women, and there has been no kind of any action taken against perpetrators. This has highlighted and exposed the fascist casteist society that we are living in and the casteist government that is ruling on us. And on top of failing to carry out an unbiased investigation, the police has now claimed an international plot to defame the UP chief minister. But the point is that we have to see that there is a pattern, there is a steep rise of cases of gender based violence and caste based violence in our country. Going forward, we have to understand that rape is about power. We have to remember that caste based rape is the tool of domination that the upper caste men have used against Dalit women for ages. We have seen multiple arrests and police brutality in the protests that have been taking place in the last few days in support of the Dalit women. But we have to question, why is that? Why does it bother our society that we take so much hatred when it comes to people who are talking against caste atrocities and sexual crimes and Dalit women? We have to understand that the government is trying to suppress the voices of dissent. We have to understand that this is a pattern of oppressing the minority communities who have time and again tried to raise their voices against the the many atrocities that we have been facing. So, taking forward the conversation and understanding this phenomenon in deep, we'll now invite our speakers to take it ahead. The structure of the lecture is going to be as such. There's 20 minutes for each speaker, and then we move on to the Q&A, the question and answer session. The participants can send in their questions in the comments, specifying the speaker they are posing their question to. So now I'd like to invite our first panelist, Dr. Meera Valayadan, the president of Indian Association of Women's Studies. She has been involved in gender studies since the early 1980s. Her doctoral research focused on gender, caste, social reform, nationalism, and popular women of Kerala. She has also been conducting courses on gender studies and participated in national courses related to gender. So now I'd like to invite Dr. Meera to take forward the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to participate in the Progressive Students Forum protest. I'd say it's a protest meeting on what happened in Hathras, as well as these spate of these which are taking place. And also, I'd like to thank the other participants, Sangeeta and Swati also. I'm happy to join both of you, and Pooja, who's chairing the session. So let me just start. I'll be making 4 points, 4 sort of areas of discussion. One would be this: some of the issues that are arising out of Hathras itself. The other is some bit of the analysis that's been going on related to that also, and even otherwise. And third would be the kind of anti-caste conversations that are going on. And fourth would be about the political template under which we are sort of these kind of violations and atrocities are taking place. So I'd like to say that any kind of, when we hear about any kind of violence, of where the first thing that we ask is, where has it come from? And then secondly, whom is it committed on? Who faced it? Who faced this kind of violence? Then one looks at the deeper kind of, goes further and looks at the vulnerabilities. Is it its context? What is the location? The power relations, the caste um, hierarchies in that area in terms of patriarchal, Brahmanical patriarchal caste hierarchies in the region, the political power over there. But I think in this case, what happened is, with the death and the cremation, in fact, is what really created a sort of overall outrage. Death itself was reported, and there were these questions: is it really caste? But the cremation just brought a lot of issues to the fore. One is that, of course, it led to varied kind of protests, which are still ongoing. But what clearly came out is the failure of the legal system and institutions, and complicity levels of failures of responsibility by these institutions and the legal system, and the impunity at so many levels, which is very stark in, even through just the media projections that we see it. And then in what comes through is the role of the state agencies. Now, in particularly in such violations and such atrocities, what is really significant, what are the state agencies which are involved, which is, one is the police and the medical professional. These are very significant cases of rape, and the filing of the FIR. So filing of the FIR itself is, when it is not recorded properly, that is the first sort of report that goes on the basis of which any investigation can take place. So therefore, it's really very crucial how the FIR, was it filed or not, and in what way it was filed. In this case, it wasn't filed properly. And then there is, of course, the medical professional, where it was taken to Aligarh Muslim University Hospital, AMU Hospital, where it was taken. And I think in the FIR also, and as well as the medical thing, one of the things is that if the person is not able to speak, then there are some injuries, there's some self-evident injuries and others which needs to be taken as part of the FIR. It has to be taken. And then in this case, not only the mother's statement, but also she herself gave verbal testimony. So there is enough of that kind of evidence. And from what we hear now, is the doctors of that hospital have said that there was rape did take place. The doctors, that's a feedback that we are getting, that they have in a statement said that rape did take place, although immediately the DIG and others said there was no rape. And I think that's going to be their template. And they've actually appointed a PRO team to just project some of these kind of negating the rape itself. And I think what in that whole thing about the cremation is the whole issue of the body which came up, and this is very significant in all the cases of sexual violence against Dalit women. The body actually is the location and scene of the offense. The body is, they are now going around looking at the fields, but it's a body that is the location and scene of the crime, as well as it's known as aggravated forms of violence after the Nirbhaya judgment which came. And in this case, the idea is that the body was released to the police and not to the next of kin, which is the law. That there's also the whole issue of bodily autonomy and in life and death under the law. So therefore, like this whole thing was pointed out by the senior lawyer and human rights activist Indira Jaising, who's actually arguing the case in the Supreme Court. And so therefore this whole thing of the cremation is the whole bodily autonomy in life and death. So body does not belong to the state, it belongs to the next of kin. And fortunately the division bench of Allahabad had seized of it, and they have one of the questions they're looking into is who does the body belong to, and the post-mortem was also not the next of kin was not even present when the post-mortem was being taken, so therefore this whole thing of the body and the cremation has wider sort of ramifications. The other is that, and from that to the second point in terms of Dalit women's bodies, the discussion is that how caste is sort of enforced through Dalit women's bodies and their personhood. So Baba Sahib Ambedkar, in fact, actually points it out and said castes are born and thrive through gendered violence. He points that out, and this gendered violence also is you see in the exclusionary processes between castes. This kind of violence, as well as in the patriarchal relations within caste. So therefore, this the significance to gendered violence on Dalit women's bodies is very much there in what has been pointed out by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and also it's also how violence is one of the forms in which endogamy is, which is the he cites at the basis of the caste system, is sort of regulated. So, and it's regulated through various kind of practices, Dalit women's bodies through enforcing certain codes. Like for instance, among the dominant castes historically, like sati, as well as enforced widowhood, or even girl marriage. These were sort of some of the practices which sort of kept within women became very centered to that the caste reproducing the caste itself. And then also about Baba Sahib also points out about these the impunity. Where does the impunity sort of come from? And this because the dominant caste, and in this case not only the dominant caste but also the state itself is that they are the maker of injunctions. They say these are the rule, these are the injunctions, and they are above all of it. So there's a kind of, Baba Sahib Ambedkar points out a kind of sovereignty, which he of course extends to the nation itself. And he says that, having that sort of sovereignty and the power to sort of suspend the validity of any law, and then placing themselves above the law or outside the law. And this kind of sovereignty is there in caste domination. And in this case, in terms of the state and the state government itself and all the institutions that are there. So therefore, he also says in terms of resistance, also even the elementary kind of to exercise elementary kind of rights of citizenship, and this is an issue of citizenship. It leads to the worst form of tyranny, and where society, all the environment itself is tyrannical. And we can see this very clearly in the case of UP itself, So the acts of tyranny and violence is not restricted to functionaries only, but also goes deeper into the personhood, into the community itself, and enslaving the community. So these are very sort of significant points that sort of came up in the anti-caste, in the not only in the pre-independence, but these are the discussions the conversations which are going on in the Dalit movement itself. And so therefore Baba Sahib always linked the annihilation of caste to the end of subjugation of women within the caste itself in terms of patriarchies. And caste-based violence and sexual violence not only sort of enforces sort of caste, it sort of enforces some kind of caste terror, but also attempts to humiliate, debase, shaming, and sort of negating the personhood, and humiliating the family and the community, and this caste and the culture of rape, which sort of gets inbuilt in it. This sort of violence cannot be thought of, you cannot think of therefore violence of this kind without caste. And that's very significant because what's happening is that these days, all around us, we are all the time we are having these arguments. It's caste, it's caste, it's caste, and sometimes we get a bit tired to say that it's caste, but that is what it is. There's a certain culture within which this kind of violence takes place, and that cannot take place without linking it with caste domination and the Brahmanical patriarchies, caste patriarchies. So therefore, that is very sort of violence against. So if you see that wherever there is violence against women, the statistics, there's violence against women is high. There also in those areas itself, violence against Dalit women is also very high. And that you can see in the National Crime Bureau statistic itself. So there's a correlation. So therefore, when there's a discussion in any sort of levels, whether it's a feminist movement or any other, you cannot talk about violence against women without mentioning caste. And therefore, I think that's the sort of second point that I really want to make in terms of the discussion that leads to analysis that's reading about caste and gender. Then what are the other thing point is about what are the kind of anti-caste conversations, that are going on. As students around, you must be having discussions with various other groups who don't agree with your positions or who have some other viewpoint. And so therefore these anti-caste conversations of course are very varied in the regions, but there are kind of certain things that which has been part of that is, and so in that anti-caste conversations, what we say is that where and how does sexual violence against Dalit women figure in these anti-caste conversations that are going on, and also in the anti-caste mobilization and resistance that is going on. So there has been, in the last sort of 10, 12 years, there's been a shift in not only in the discourse, but also even in the law through the movements which has come about in terms of now it's not about victimhood. And it's also moved sort of beyond victimhood to also beyond stigma and shame. Even legally, it has moved beyond that. It's more about the survivor's dignity and the personhood of the survivor. The survivor, as well as the whoever has even has become, who was killed or through caste violence, women, they also have dignity. So in the law itself, there is this dignity, personhood, which is part of that, and also in terms of when we are talking about the body, the right to the body itself. So I think these are very sort of significant shifts that's taking place in terms of the kind of not only the discourse but also in the movement and in terms of the law itself. Which has sort of changed quite a bit from the early Untouchability Abolition Act, then it went to Civil Rights Act, and then later the SCST, the Atrocities Act. So there's been a big shift where all sort of kinds of different kinds of violence keep figuring in the law, and thus in the SCST Atrocities Act, it sort of comes to the whole question of atrocity comes in. About caste atrocity actually starts figures from about from the about mid 80s onwards in the law itself, so which sort of includes violence against sexual violence against Dalit women in all these laws which are there. So there's been a kind of through the movement itself and through the discourses that takes place of particularly the Dalit movement itself, these sort of definitions have come into the law itself. But of course, these have not really. There's a big struggle to even for in any case itself there are very low levels of conviction, because all the level, just as it's happening in Hathras, the same kind of barriers are coming up, the same kind of impunity, these same thing is happening in all these in terms of the law itself. And there has been an effort by particularly with this government coming takes to sort of, and a lot of Supreme Court judgments in recent years have actually continuously taken away the rights of Dalit, including constitutional rights, are being sort of eroded slowly in even in terms of reservations and others, slowly getting in the Supreme Court itself, which should have been upholding, in fact, the constitutional rights and principles which are there. And one of the other, the last point, which last 2 points I'd want to say is that in the present conversations among Dalit women's group and Dalit feminists, and there's a lot of discussions going on with the feminist movement itself, and some of this, just some of the points I'll just sort of briefly say, and maybe it'll come in conversations among you all also. One is that there's a whole feeling that the outrage is often very selective. The outrage to such kind of violations, such brutal violence is often very selective. And that's one of the conversation that is also going on. The other is about appropriation, how different within, I think this particularly with the Dalit feminism and the feminist movement, this is one of the thing about, appropriation, having our own voice. So it's very significant. In the last few days, there have been a lot of protests and discussions on webinars on gender and caste itself. And so, what Dalit women themselves and Dalit feminists and other groups are saying is that we need, space for our own voice. And so this whole thing, some of it is very sort of very sharp and gets sometimes very intolerant. It's because the issue is so, concerns us so much. We are all so much enraged and also moved by what we are seeing that, we also, there's a sort of desperateness even among us when we have conversations that are going on. So this whole thing about about having our own voice and you listen, and also about something about sort of giving up privileges, giving up your own privileges. Sort of a discussion with the feminist movement or feminists. These are the kind of conversations, not only in social media but even in sort of groups that are going on, the discussions within it. But it's important to continue these discussions and not sort of close up any of the, even if it is a viewpoint is different, we need to keep conversing over there, so that because the overall the at the state level itself, the kind of propaganda that's going to come is going to negate whatever we are trying to put forward. So it's important for us to keep conversing with all these other groups. The last point that I really want to make is that about the political template in which, now that there's this the kind of shift that's taking place, and that in which we, under which these kind of violations and extreme brutalities are taking place, it's increasing in numbers, it's widening itself, and the impunity is also much more blatant, in this case, the different levels of butchery. So therefore, the political template is what we can see is what really is the Bhima Koregaon political template. If you see the Bhima Koregaon, there was this resistance and countercultures that was put forward by the Dalit movement and Dalit discourse, and then there's a reaction to that. And as a reaction, you find that all these who are sort of in the what is called the Bhima Koregaon case, that's what it's called, is that you find that all those who the who are sort of in turn now almost for jail for 2 years without any trial, and without even the even nobody knows if there any evidence or anything. This is the kind of political template that's sort of going on, and in that you find that uh, many of them have had very deep links in terms of Dalit movements and Dalit Adivasi human rights sort of movements, in which some of them have actually given legal help or various levels in which they have sort of proved their solidarity. So actually are very much part of some of these resistance movements, and so therefore it's very targeted in terms of who are the people who really this and why also, because I think since if you see that ever since that Dalit Bandh which took place 3 years back, and it was fairly widespread and successful. Taliban, I think, it was one of the most peaceful and the widespread. And quite a lot was organized by smaller groups all over, but it sort of picked up like anything. And there was such the only violence that came was in some place was from the dominant caste. It was otherwise really, and that really sort of shook up this particular government, and they had to the amendments they had brought to SC/ST Atrocities Act. They had to withdraw it, and in Parliament, and then they tried to project it as though that oh no no, we are all for Dalits, and so therefore the movement itself has sort of gained quite a bit. To create that kind of impact. Also, I think from particularly with the Rohit Vemamala, the struggles related to that, and particularly among the youth, the student movement and the youth movement, and then the Una flogging which took place in Gujarat and various other universities, Hyderabad, JNU, Delhi University, various Madras, IITs, all the kind of student movements came, sort of started to bring together more broad-based kind of struggles in which Dalit youth and young and women were playing very leadership roles. So that is a big shift that was taking place, and that preceded this anti-CAA protests which were taking place. So therefore, this kind of build-up that was the resistance was there, and also building larger kind of platforms and unity itself, is something, and that is why now this whole the kind of the kind of people, the if you see all the students and the young people, young women from and Dalit groups, including Dalit cultural groups who are now being arrested, and sort of the Bhima Koregaon kind of the same kind of charges about sedition, trying to, create enmity among the people, all these kind of charges. And also in UP now, he has nobody knows the list in the name. They have about 140 people are being charged for sedition on this issue itself. Not only sedition, but conspiracy, including international conspiracy to sort of bring down the government and undermine the government. So that's a kind of political. There's a big political shift in terms of the overall fascistic kind of trends that are emerging, as well as the kind of and even in the COVID sort of situation hasn't deterred. In fact, it has only increased the kind of voices of dissent and various kind of voices, particularly among the Dalits, Adivasis, and these sort of say they really focus on seeing that these voices do not sort of come up. And so I think the it's very important that we sort of carry forward some of the discussions which took place the pre-CAA, as well as the in the current context, what's happening vis-a-vis what's there's violence in Hathras, the conversation that are around them in terms of Dalit women's the violence against Dalit women's and caste society that is there, and caste domination, how it's sort of this Brahmanical patriarchal sort of domination that is there, and how it's taking the political form and the state power that is sort of linked with that. We sort of need to bring that conversation and be open as students. It's all of us, not only as students, as all of us. It's really important for us to listen also, as well as put forward our views. And also I think we have to more and more push about although it's so evidence, even then I think there will be a big media campaign also, and already from various groups around us also, in terms of where is caste in it. It's all a gender issue. So I think these sort of conversations we need to and bring forward and then discuss. And this is what will build up our sort of resistance as well as solidarities, that we have this kind of we have sort of building a new kind of knowledge system in which we are putting that the anti-caste conversations we are putting as a new knowledge as students, as well as this is the new knowledge that bringing forward, and it has a resistance element to it. So I think these are the sort of points I wanted to bring to this discussion here, and I'd like to hear the students what among you that you're talking. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meera. So very well said that dominant caste placing themselves above the law and how it leads to the worst form of tyranny, and how there is this constant appropriation of Dalit women's voices, and how caste atrocities are undermined by people who bring in the conversation that there is no need to talk about caste in a caste-based atrocity or a caste-based sexual crime. And very rightly said that conversations are very important, and we need to continue having such conversations even in such times of dissent. So, taking our conversation forward, I would now like to invite Swati Karthik. She's a research scholar in Pondicherry University, and she has been a strong voice against caste-based atrocities and gender-based violence. So, Swati, over to you. Thank you.
It's rather a privilege to speak after Meera ma'am. Anyways, most of the things about this particular incident and also rape culture, I think Meera ma'am have covered. I will just look into what is this political scape of UP and India in general, how it actually enhances this kind of a rape culture, and how Dalits and minorities and also women in this country have been treated for a while. So women and minority community are the victims of fascism always. It is not different in the case of India, and maybe recently we have a lot of cases coming up, and most of these cases, if you consider, there are rather we can call it as state-sponsored murders. As in UP, what we have seen is UP itself is, we have to really talk about it, because UP is on the top of the list where women and underage girl children are attacked and assaulted physically. So this situation is crucial in in most of these cases. The accused or perpetrators are upper caste men, and they are somehow unpunished. We have seen how UP police have worked as like slave men for UP, this Thakur community, and favoring their interests. Maybe from Unnao to Hadras and even Asamghat, UP police and the government kind of making way for the upper caste men to escape from the brutal hate crime that they have committed. The kind of unparalleled ways of physical violence against minority communities and women are not just found in UP, but many other BJP ruled or BJP governing places or states in India. They are particularly targeting minorities. They are lynching women and Dalit people on streets, and they are taking, considering the situation the minority communities of India are being in right now, they are making it worse for people like us. I'm being a Dalit. I feel like, whatever happening to the people of Dalit community anywhere in India, it is happening to my people, or it's very personal for me. So the police, the BJP, RSS propaganda kind of making it impossible for the Dalit community or minority community to live in India. You have to see maybe the politics or the structuring or how they are engineering rape.
Sorry, Swati. I am so sorry. I'm interrupting you, but your voice is breaking constantly. I am so sorry for interrupting. Your voice is breaking
Hello?
really badly.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
We can actually see how the politics or the engineering of rape here. Here, in most rape, in a way, it is most brutal way to assert one's dominance over other, or and where we are living in a situation where we have unfinished and unsolved problems of caste system, and while all these are women, are particularly Dalit women, are targeted by the upper caste men. They believe somehow it is a way to engineer their privilege or exert their privilege with the help of this kind of a political help. If you see like the places where BJP is governing, the state is somehow or some or other way they are favoring this accused. It is undemocratic, it is barbaric, and it is complete denial of justice towards each and every victim of caste-based killings. Then today, the Supreme Court of India had remarked Hathras incident as a shocking one, but again, UP police or UP even BJP RSS people are saying whatever UP police is saying, as in the Hathras victim was not raped. They have collected the sample after 11 days, and they are saying that the victim was not raped. So this is how they are negating whatever kind of the brutality or brutality or damage they have done to a community. It is not just a denial of justice towards a person, but denial of justice towards a minority community. BJP is taking this statement and to kind of using as a defense or defense for the accused. So being a Dalit myself, I think all caste-based atrocities I can see only as my people, and we are always under the attack, or we are always at the verge of attacks by the people, by the upper caste people. I mean, for everywhere for that matter. When I mentioned, the politics of the rape or like the structure of rape, we have to see that rape and its, how it is crucial for Dalits. As in, Manuvadis have always their caste-based or thinking is like the Brahmins can assert their physical violence over other communities because they are from the division Manuvadis actually say. So these are also when you talk about demolishing a mosque and building up Ram temple and all, when they are talking about Hindu Rashtra, or the Hindu Rashtra is exceptional for Dalits and minorities. It's not for women. It's not for Dalit women. It's not for our people. And also when they are uttering about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, it's not for ours. Especially when you see Hathras incident, the victim and her sisters haven't been to school because they say like it was dangerous for them to. It was not safe for them to go to school every day. So through that village, this is the kind of reality India is facing. So RSS and police, especially in this case, RSS and police are the criminal phase. They have kind of like denied access to media. They are not letting the activists or social activists or leaders to enter the premises. Police and Savarna caste people made it their own republic. While all this happening, what is the need of talking about this? I don't know, like if we don't talk about this, who else will talk about it? Is what question like constantly haunts me. Whenever something like this comes, a group of people will mark their dissent. A group of people will protest against this. A group of people will talk about it. But the kind of solidarity we have to give to the minority community is crucial, because even at this time, even at this point of time, there was a news like recently I have seen in Agra, people have lower caste people have denied to pick up garbage because they are kind of giving their solidarity to the Hathras victim. So people are protesting in whatever way or whichever way they can. And as students and scholars, it is our responsibility to talk about it, resist the moves, and protest or mark our dissent in any way which is appropriate for us. And always these people will try to engineer their fascist way of asserting their dominance over minority community, and only with the equipping minority community to come in forward and write against the atrocities happening, some changes will happen. And student community always have to back up their moves, always have to be there in solidarity with all these struggles.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Swati, but your screen has frozen, so we are not able to hear you.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah.
Yes.
Now it's fine. Okay. Yeah, you can go
Yeah,
ahead.
I actually have stopped. I mean, I finished saying. I don't know, like from where I become inaudible.
That's okay. If you have a last minute of concluding remarks, then we can go ahead.
Okay, what I was saying as a conclusion, only with the only with kind of giving solidarity to the Dalits and minorities of our country, we can change the situation the minorities of India are actually in right now. So, as students and scholars, it is our responsibility to talk about it, resist all the moves, and protest and mark our dissent, even if they try to kill our dissent. It's always like, the conversation has to keep coming. So, I think unless we talk about it, nothing will happen. And the only way we can do is like we have to be the backup of any kind of moves which is against the system, against this fascist system, which tries to kind of uh, uh, kill the moves of, or kill the voices of dissent, and kind of deny the justice to minority communities of India.
Thank you so much, Swati. That was really insightful. How you have talked about the politics and the engineering of rape, and that the way we have seen it in the Hathras case, and the way they engineer their power over Dalit women, and how it's undemocratic, barbaric, and a denial of justice. And yes, rightly said that we have to be the backup against this fascist system, and we have to constantly raise our voice against these fascist rulings. Okay, so the first question is from Kashyap. How do liberals from so-called upper caste actively support Dalits without getting in the crossfire? For example, how can a Brahmin Marxist show solidarity to Dalit causes and not get reverse fire? If you can specify to whom is this question to, or is it to either of the panelists, then we can go ahead. I think it's open to either of the panelists who'd like to take the question.
I think that in the last part of my discussion, I had said some of these things in terms of there is a conversation that is going on, and in terms of some of the issues that we're saying is in terms of appropriation, in terms of giving our own voice that should be there, and also in terms of acknowledging privileges.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Meera. I'm interrupting you, but if you could turn on your video while answering the question, that would be really helpful. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think in the last part of my presentation, I had sort of discussed how in the Dalit women's movement and Dalit feminists and having discussion all also across through Marxist feminists and other sections we're discussing, and I think without sort of labeling and just dismissing, what we are really discussing is like there are 3 points I had put forward. One is this whole question of appropriations, and not only, and linked with that is about having our own voices, and also about acknowledging privileges. So I think these are the 3 points that that one is having with conversations with different liberals, Marxists, other sections who are there, the feminists, and so it's a conversation that is going on, and I would not put it as sort of whether they come in I wouldn't put it about like crossfire or anything, but it is getting into, in some levels it does get to that kind of points, but it's important for us to really converse and not do too much of just labeling, but actually converse in terms of the content of what we are trying to put through, and saying that we need our own voices, and so this whole issue as appropriation is very important also in terms of acknowledging your own privileges. So I think there are different ways of putting it across. Rather than get one does get you can get impatient about it, and you can get frustrated why you have to keep saying these things and asserting these things, but it's something that if you have to build solidarities, broader kind of solidarities, you need to have these conversations, and you also need to say that we need our own spaces, and that you acknowledge the privileges, and you also keep in mind in terms of sensitivities about appropriation. So these, I think, these things are ongoing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meera. I would like to ask Swati if she has any comments on the question. If you'd like me to repeat the question, I can do that.
I think I don't know, like crossfire is a right term to use, but there will be a chance for people or whoever is there to judge you, but that doesn't, or that will not stop you from conversing about it or talk about it. Also, there are other kind of Marxists like E.M. Shankaran Namboodiripad and all have always been talked about atrocities against class people in that way. He has addressed both class-based issues and caste-based issues without having any kind of privilege of his own caste. So I don't think that is, the labeling is what we have to bother about right now. What we have to do is talk about it, and labeling or judgment, being judgmental about somebody is not what will be recognized in a collective voice. What we have to
Exactly. Exactly.
what we have to do is like, being empathetic to the other person or other people, or the larger cause. That is what is needed. That is what we should be doing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Swati. We can go ahead with the next question. Um, it's by Kiran Johnson on how to stop rape culture. Is there an end? So either of the panelists can go ahead and answer the question. I would also like to request the participants if you can specify which speaker you would like to post your question to, or you are posting it to both of the panelists. Thank you so much.
I request Meera ma'am to answer this, because this is one kind of a question, or this is a, I don't know, it's not just a question, it's a concern that we all have. I think Meera
Yes,
ma'am
yes.
can answer.
I think one of the things that you need to know is that there are concrete conditions for these rape culture, and there have been resistance at legal levels and at many levels, and in fact we are building up that kind of need to build alternatives. And but so long as these sort of conditions and the political power combined with political power and the impunity sort of continue, we have to, of course, legally these are being fought at various levels. And then there have been gains, but now we are in a sort of situation where it's sort of taking very aggravated forms. So therefore all the more reason for us to sort of unite and also question some of these things at different levels. So that's the way you can say. Of course, we all see an end to it. We, without having visions of a kind of just about social justice and this kind of society we see in the future. Without that we would not be fighting these struggles.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Swati. We can go ahead with the next question. Are there any more questions? Okay, so Kashyap has this question. He says, how do you think we can prevent the basic mentality behind caste, the caste pride, etc.? So again, I open the question to both of the panelists, whoever would like to take the question ahead.
I think we have said that this is systemic. The mentality is very much systemic, and it has power relations and domination, those kind of location that is there behind it. So therefore, it's very much linked. It's not just only a mentality. It's about power relations and domination and certain practices which are on the ground, and these violations are taking place. It's a kind of the dominant caste and the past that we think that there's an entitlement to inflict this kind of violence, that is entitled. and sort of that feeling of this entitlement to inflict and to degrade in some way, to enforce and perpetuate their own power. So I think that is very much there, and it's not just a mentality only. It's more than mentality. It's about the thinking that they're entitled to do this, and there's, since they hold the power and the domination in the thing, they are able to, and then they have the whole system themselves with them in terms of whether it's the officials or the police, in which these sections are themselves dominant in it, including in the judiciary.
I agree to what Ma'am said. It's a social product. You can disintegrate it as one in one go. So it is a systematic reduction that has to happen in multiple levels. So rather than when you thinking about how to prevent, maybe we can think about how to change it in many simple ways or simple levels. So only through that systematic reduction we can change the whole, or we can kind of demolish the whole production of how the caste privilege or the privilege or the pride which is associated with caste or the entire caste system, that and all. So that is it is a long process. It has to happen in different levels. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Swati. So our last question is from Shikha. With regimented muscle and money power, this kind of crime is being engineered. Where is its end? Is there any? When all pillars of democracy seem to be sold. So I request either of the panelists to take the question, whoever is comfortable to go ahead.
I think in your question, I don't see caste anywhere. Caste domination or patriarchies, I don't see that anywhere in it, in the question itself. So it's not just muscles and power, and without the systemic thing of caste domination and Brahmanical patriarchal caste domination and power relations, without sort of embedding that in your question, you will not the way you have posed a question, you have to put that within it, and that's, I think, the discussion that we are having. And it's not about all pillars being sold. It's about how these kind of power relations and these sort of political kind of power, that the nature of the political power that is there, that we are sort of even at the level of the legal system, we are really struggling. But it doesn't mean that everyone is just sold out. It's very systemic what's happened, and it's also about the political power and the state itself. So there are these, you have to see these in terms of the state institutions and the political power itself. So it's not about it's all sold out, and that all of us have a role to play in selling that out, and all that will be a wrong way to put it. I think the struggle for democracy is there.
Swati, if you have any remarks regarding the previous question.
Then we can move. I got out of the studio
Okay.
somehow.
Okay, we can go ahead with the next question. So Anuvrati has a question. She says, for a few days, many national media houses have covered the Hathras case and have questioned the Yogi government's actions as well. However, this is very strange given its corporate media and goes with the narrative building of the present regime. How would you analyze this?
I would not say that all the media is with the resistance or with with the movement, but what happens with the way it unfolded and the kind of significance that is given to particular events. At some stage, it was some of the protests by the political parties and the leadership is highlighted. Somewhere, of course, there were investigations which were going on. It was so blatant and so, and also I think it's a resistance put forward by the family, which is very important in here. I think because the resistance put forward by the family, they're not cowed down even now, and they refuse to accept that very shameful offer of the chief minister for of funds to them, as well as they have rejected the CBI inquiry, and also they have there has been other movements of the Valmiki community in UP in many places. Protest movements are there, and there's a kind of, so I think it's that resistance itself which sort of gave even when they were sort of blocked, there was a blockade over there was a family member who managed to come out and talk to the media, and therefore that sort of is it's newsy, and it also is something that they could not if it was a totally silenced kind of family and there was no other, was totally suppressed, the media would have been in what they would be pointing out to. And in the next few days it will play out much more because there's a huge media, the PRO has been appointed by the UP chief minister. One is to sort of deny that there was any rape, and then this whole international conspiracy. What they say about all the Bhima Koregaon, that kind of propaganda will take, and then we'll see how the media really goes along on this, as the also cases are being fought in not only Supreme Court but with the Allahabad High Court. So I would not like right now sort of say that they were all for justice. They did. It came out. I think a lot of it came out because of the resistance of the family, and that is very important for all of us to keep in mind. They are continuing to resist even now.
Okay, Swati, do you have any remarks to add to that, or we can go ahead with the next question?
We can go ahead.
Okay, so the next question is for Dr. Meera. This is Das from Abu Dhabi. The question is that there are few IT cells working overtime and spreading misinformation and hate that was never seen before. What action can be taken by minorities and Dalits to mitigate that?
Hello, Das. I'm really happily surprised to see you here. And in this, particularly in this kind of discussion, yes, there are IT cells which are sort of, which are sort of have been commissioned and spreading a lot of, not only misinformation. Basically, it's a kind of, the state itself, the kind of narrative it wants to build. So these are all very sort of organized kind of thing that is there. But it's important that we also, whether it's through social media or whatever kind of levels that we take, we also put forward our views, bring forth what is happening, and keep our eyes and ears about the investigations that are going on. There is ground level reportings going on in various sources and all that. So we need to sort of put that, and we have to continuously engage. I think that is the way that we can do.
Okay, so that was our last question for the session. I'd like to invite Asika from Progressive Students Forum um, to come forward and speak and engage in the conversation.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Asika, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for both the panelists. And we all know we were waiting for Sangeeta ma'am to join us, but very unfortunately, ma'am couldn't join due to some technical issues. We have tried our maximum, and it is really unfortunate that she couldn't join us today. So she sent us regards, and also we promise you that we will definitely bring her soon in the platform, and we can definitely hear from her. So we apologize for this technical issue we have faced. So adding on to the discussion, I think we are in the discussion, and we are actually like bringing the topic that, or the things that matter into the picture, where the students and the other society is hearing us. So that is the important thing that we could do at this point of time also, because still we are facing this pandemic, and on the other side this country is like deteriorating in every sense. So we should bring and we should carry on the discussion. So as Miriam ma'am was also mentioning, so this is like a pandemic which has been here for like maybe thousands of years. So, and still we are fighting it, but we have to actually make our voices little more louder, and we should actually increase the solidarity. We should actually bring the fight more forward from every front that is possible, from academia, from students protest, and from every other areas that could for that matter. So my duty here is to thank the panelists. First of all, Dr. Meera Velayudan, we are really honored to have you here, and it was really such a delightful moment to hear you. And I thank you on behalf of Progressive Students Forum for coming here and talk about this issue. And next, I would like to thank Swati, who talked about the struggles and protests that are from her point perspective, from a student's perspective, and also as a Dalit student who's fighting this in a daily basis. And I also would like to thank our Sangeeta Tosar, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but still I would like to thank her. And next, I would like to thank Pooja Mandal for handling the session very nicely. Thank you, Pooja, for being here. And I would really love to thank all of the people who's watching this, and do bring this conversation to your home. Do bring this conversation to your circles, friend circles, and everywhere. And as I have seen so many questions, how can we actually be like a supporter, or like be in part of the struggle if we are not part of the community? The thing that matters is you have to be sympathetic, or you have to be empathetic to the community, and you have to spread the word rather than take their voices. You have to actually be like behind them when they are like taking their struggles forward. So I would like to end on that note. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
A very good evening.
Thank you. Swati,
Thank
keep
you.
in
Thank you so
touch.
much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, sure.
Swati and Ashika, thank you so much, and the Progressive Students Forum.
Thank you, PSLP.